Good evening and welcome to The Debate. I'm joined by Davies and Paul Merson this evening. The results this weekend saw Manchester City take control in the Premier League title race. So where does that leave Liverpool? Not far behind are Manchester United, who have replaced Arsenal in the top four. But will they stay there? We're also going to carry on the conversation after Raheem Sterling accused some sections of sports media of treating black and white footballers differently. And some changes have been approved to certain football laws that will come into place next season. And there are some very interesting ones. So we'll discuss those with the guys next to me now. And a frustrating night for Chris Wilder and Sheffield United as they miss the chance to move into the automatic promotion places. We'll take a look at where this leaves the Championship and the race to the Premier League. And don't forget, you can get involved as well. Tweet us using the hashtag #TheDebate at Sky Sports Premier League.
You think it's again PlayStation, bring an extra attacker and football change. That's not like that. We are offensive enough. Football doesn't work like that. Come on. And there's not nine games to go. And but what is that? We don't lose our nerves. Not like you, obviously. It's like because it's just you have these. It's the second time that you ask the question. I really don't get because it's just. City won yesterday in a game where they had 20 chances or so with one shot in the short corner, which Boris usually picks. Easy, but they won it.
So that was Jurgen Klopp speaking after the 0-0 draw at Goodison Park this weekend, clearly frustrated with the line of questioning. Not only that, defending his choice of substitutions. But before we get your thoughts on that, let's just have a little look at what that result, combined with City's, did to the Premier League table. So for the first time, Manchester City, you can see back in December, were 5 points clear. That is the biggest lead that they'd had this season. It then moved into Liverpool's hands, who on the 29th of December were 9 points clear. And then Manchester City now go to the top of the table and they are a single point clear. And this is the first time really that they've been level in terms of the games that they've played, and we've seen this. So the first question really we should focus on is the question that has been asked a lot in the media, not only in the media, also amongst the fans. Is pressure setting into Liverpool, or is that just part and parcel of the Premier League title race?
I think it is part and parcel of the Premier League title race. Obviously, for Liverpool to be in this position, if you asked them this last year, they'd obviously have snapped your hand off. It's simply because of what they've done, and as we saw on the graphic, they were 9 points clear. It's obviously important to them and the fans, having gone, whatever it is, 29 years without a title, to finally get that elusive Premier League title. And obviously, when you talk about pressure, I don't know if it's pressure or if it's form, but obviously Man City aren't going to stop, so it's down to Liverpool now to start getting wins rather than draws, because ultimately it's only draws that have killed them. They've lost one game all season, and it's the draws that have killed them, and Man City just keep on winning.
And you talk about the form and the draws. It's 4 draws from the last 6 for Liverpool, and for Manchester City it's 5 wins in the last 6. So you can see now how they've closed this gap. But what is it down to, do you think?
Fixtures, bit of bad luck, bit of bad form, bit of confidence. You know, you look at the front three of Liverpool; they've completely all lost form at the same time, all of them. I mean, if you'd have watched them on Sunday, if Salah would have come on trial to your club last week and he trained all week and he said, right, we're going to have a practice match now, you wouldn't have him back. You wouldn't have him back. You wouldn't. It was one of them games. But that's what they're all doing now. They're having them games. I personally think the manager's panicking. I find he's panicking a little bit there in the press conference, getting all uptight. You know, Man City had 20 shots. Don't worry about Man City. Forget Man City. Just do what you're doing. You know, the week before, I thought they had a good result at Man United. I thought that was a good result. 0-0, hard game. Man United playing as well as anybody. I know they had a few injuries. They come out, that's 2 points drop. 2 points drop. No, just say it's a point gained. We're top of the league. 10 to go. We go from here. And I just think panic setting in by substitutions, you know, bringing on Lallana for Mane. You really got to win the game, really. They were never going to lose the game. It wasn't there to lose. Everton sort of settled for a point. They might have done something out of the ordinary and nicked something. But it was, you know, Milner coming on. Don't get me wrong, I'm one of his biggest fans. But, you know, you've got Sturridge and Shaqiri on the bench. You know, you've got to win the game. Sometimes panic sets in with managers. That sometimes they sit there after the game. I've been a manager myself. And you sit there and you go, shouldn't have done that, you know. Shouldn't have done that.
Paul Merson mentions Shaqiri. We've seen at times this season where Shaqiri's come in for Liverpool and he has made the difference.
Yeah, well,
if you were in that position, would you have brought him on?
Yeah, if I was a Liverpool manager, yeah. Of course, listen, Klopp has got Liverpool to where they are because of how good he is. But I was just surprised to not see Shaqiri come on, having seen him trusted in big games like the Manchester United game earlier in the season. He came on, scores, gets man of the match from the bench kind of thing. To see him not come on into that game was a surprise. But obviously, Lallana is a top quality attacking player. James Milner, as Paul said, I played with James and I know how good he is in terms of the attacking side as well as the hard-working defensive side. So he'll believe that those substitutions he put on were big enough to win the game. But outside looking in, having gone to Manchester United sort of highlighted from the fact that they had so many injuries, it seemed points dropped. And then you go to Everton, it's a derby, it's always form goes out the window in those type of games. But because of how Everton have done, it's 2 points dropped. But it's not too much about the panic about those two games, but it's more disappointing the other two games around that they're drawn, which I think Liverpool fans and people in the media and people watching will see as a little bit of a wobble.
We've had a tweet, and you mentioned it, the form of Salah in the last 3 games in particular, 3 Premier League games without a goal for the first time as a Liverpool player. And the tweet is, can Salah get his mojo back? So the first question really is, has he lost it? Or does this happen? You know, and if he has, what's it down to?
Well, it happens. I mean, if he didn't play, like, you know, if he played like that, he'd still be at Chelsea. So it happens, you lose form. You know, Chelsea wouldn't have sold him. That's how he played at Chelsea. The way he played at Everton, that's why he was sold. What he's not doing that he was doing before, for me, he was the best player in the world without the ball. He was the best player in the world. He ain't the best player in the world now without the ball. He ain't making them runs where he bursts, and even if he's not going to get the ball, defenders go with him. You know, you look at the front three, they were as hard-working front three as you'll see in the country or in Europe. I don't see that anymore. I don't see them pressing and putting teams under pressure. You've got 3 defensive midfield players playing in the front. Like, I scratch my head and I look and I think, well, Liverpool got one of the best defences in the country. They've got the best defender in the world, let alone the country, and they still play 3 holding midfield players in front of them. What's all that about? You know. So then you got them holding midfield players, and then you got 3 up front. Now the 3 up front have to have service. You're only as good as the people that are providing you. If you're not getting the service, it's just not happening. But if I was a manager of this football club, I'd be sitting there. There's 9 games to go. You're 1 point behind. 1 point. 1 point, and they've had their little blip. You know, they've had their blip, and then it's all about timings. You know, Liverpool, Man City, Champions League. They might end up going for the Champions League. They might have extra games. They've got the cup games.
FA Cup as well?
They've got the FA Cup. Liverpool in an unbelievable position. At the moment, the pressure's off them a bit. Just keep on winning. When it gets down to 5 games, then that's it. Because as soon as someone makes a ricket in them 5 games, you're remembered forever. Yeah. You make a mistake last week, you know, not everybody forgets. But 5 games to go, then that's when it happens.
I think Salah's contribution is just highlighted because of Liverpool's form ultimately. Because ultimately they go and beat Watford 5-0.
And that
he
was
doesn't
a major
score,
result.
and nobody says a thing. So we've got to remember Salah still, obviously, he scored loads of goals last year. He broke records everywhere, and he's a victim of his own success. But he's still the 2nd top scorer in the league. He still contributed to 24 goals for his team, with assists as well. So let's not forget, he's the top scorer for Liverpool. You still need to look at Firmino and Mane's contribution, which isn't as much as Salah. But ultimately, he's the one getting all the flack because of what he did last year.
Yeah, but that's what they need him to stand up. The problem is with the 3 of them, they've scored all their goals. The midfield have brought nothing to the party really in goals-wise. So if they don't score, if Liverpool, if Aguero doesn't score,
someone else will step
someone in the midfield will score. If Sterling don't score, Sane, you know, and then Mahrez steps up the other day. I think they got. There's not a lot of goals between them in midfield.
Got a good stat for you, actually,
Yeah, go on.
Merson. You led me into it. City have 8 players that have scored 5 goals or more. Liverpool only have 4. And the front 3, as we'd expect, and the other one is Shaqiri, of course.
Well,
is this where title-winning teams do win the titles, because you've got goals coming from all over the place, not just so reliant on a set number of players?
Well, that is it, because when you talk about the likes of Salah going through bad form, or people getting injured and things like that, like when Harry Kane got injured for Tottenham, you need the next person to step up and take that game on. When Kane was injured for Tottenham, Son come in and scored the goals. When Salah has been lacking that little bit of form, obviously against Watford, Mane managed to grab a couple of goals and things like that. But outside of that three, as we said, Shaqiri's the only one that scored above 5 and a decent amount, whereas I was surprised to see with Man City's stats that even Gundogan, who hasn't played many games for Man City this season, has managed to get 5 goals. So that just shows just how much their strength in depth is.
Gary Neville made a slightly controversial comment to some people. You wouldn't expect that, would you? And he said that perhaps Liverpool should be sacrificing the Champions League to put all their eggs in this basket and focus on the Premier League. What are your thoughts?
I've said that for months and months, 100%. 29 years without winning the Premier League.
You're saying it only means something when Gary Neville says it?
Well, no, I'm not saying that, but I agree with Gary. This is 29 years. They were in the final last year, got beat. They won it in Istanbul. 29 years, the Premier League. They could win the Champions League this year and lose. They would have lost more games than what they would have lost in 38 in the Premier League. So, for me, the Premier League's the ultimate. It's the ultimate. You know, people throw the Europe Champions League. No, not because you can lose. You can lose more games than you could lose to win your league. So no, win the Premier League. I'd put all into that basket. I really would. I mean, you're a hero forever. And at the end of the day, they've got to go out. For me, I watched them the other day. And they look nervous. You know, when they broke, you know, everybody's starting to think now what they're doing. Before the start of the season and during the season, they were breaking. It was all off the cuff. Everybody was breaking. You know, even Salah, when he went down the right at the end, they broke. And he chipped the ball straight into the goalie's hands. And it was like, they were 3v2. Any other... 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, 5 months, it was in the back of the net. They've got to get back to playing with that freedom. They were playing with freedom. They were expressing themselves. They all had a smile on their face. I just think they look a little bit nervous. And they don't have to be, because they won't let in a lot of goals. They've got an unbelievable defence. They've got an unbelievable goalie. And they've got holding midfield players. So they're saying to the rest, go on and express yourselves and do it. There's 9 to go. There'll be mistakes along the way. Don't worry about it. Man City ain't winning all 9. They're not. I'd be shocked if they won all 9. I really would.
I'd have to counter that, though, because obviously they did beat Watford midweek 5-0.
Yeah.
So if they hadn't done it in between, then we could say, yeah, they're not flowing, they're not... But to go from, obviously, draws, beat Watford 5-0, to go back down to there, I don't know what you put it down to, but yeah, I know what you're saying, because Salah's chances...
They win 5-0 against Watford because of one reason. They're 1-0 up in 5 minutes. Yeah. That's the difference. Then the shackles are off, and then it's like, you know, they're not losing the game then, because they're not letting in 2 goals.
Yeah, of course.
So they all know that. You know, Watford sort of half know that. You're playing against one of the best defences in the business, and everybody... Then the shackles come off. The fans behind the goal, they're all relaxed, and everybody's... It's feel good.
Everyone senses a goal, yeah.
And we've seen it with Liverpool. When they score early, they're ruthless. And it's a bit like Man City. But the longer the game goes on, I think, you know, I thought that was a banana skin on the other night against Watford. I really did, because I thought Watford were playing well. But because of that early goal, and if they don't get that early goal, it's just getting a little bit nervy. And I think the fans are getting nervous. I think the manager's getting nervous. And I think everybody is. That 29 years is getting brought up all the time now, all the time. But... You know, let's not get away from it. They're 1 point behind Man City. They're talking about one of the best teams in the world, club teams. Klopp's a great manager. I don't care what anybody says. He's a great manager. All right, he might be getting the ump a little bit at the moment, getting frustrated. People are questioning him and his thing. And maybe we shouldn't. You know, he knows the game better than us, and he's making his decisions. Sometimes they come off, sometimes they don't. And for me, 9 games to go, plenty of points to play. As I said, when he gets down to 5 points, well, you've only got to look. Everybody remembers Steven Gerrard falling over the ball. Yep. He's slipping over. You know, but there was a lot more mistakes than that 8-9 games before that players were making, but no one remembers them.
Well, let's have a look at the remaining fixtures, not just for Liverpool, but also for Manchester City as well, and see where these potential banana skins, as you mentioned, could come. I mean, when you have a little look at them, Curtis, Manchester City's and Liverpool, where do you see that either team are conceivably going to drop points or could drop points?
Well, with all due respect to all the other teams, you immediately look at Tottenham for both teams. Both got them at home, so that's obviously a tough game, depending on what Tottenham are doing, what Tottenham's Champions League is going, because they might put all their eggs in that basket themselves. And then other than that, you've got Chelsea at home for Liverpool and Manchester United away for Man City, which you'd say they could potentially drop points. But not to say all the rest are given, but the form that both of them have showed throughout this season, they've been able to beat those teams and quite comfortably. But they're the ones I'd say that are quite difficult.
Yeah, for me, Man City, the ones that jump out would be Crystal Palace away. Because I think Palace on the counter-attack, I think Man City have a lot of the ball, but they can fall asleep. And we've seen Palace punish them at the Etihad and score 3 goals, even though one of them was like one of the best goals you'll see. Man United, because it's a derby game, we see it with Liverpool, with Everton. You know, that's a massive game. Then after that, no disrespect to Tottenham at home, I think they look after themselves there. With Liverpool, I think Newcastle's a hard game. Last home game of the season for Newcastle. You know, Benitez will set up to make them hard to beat, and that's it really there. I really do. I think that's Liverpool's hardest game, I would say. I know they got Chelsea at home and I know they got Tottenham at home. But I do look at them and you've always got to look at the fixtures in between, and Chelsea with the Europa. The manager's never won anything at Chelsea. He'll want to win the Europa. You know, he will want to win it. You know, top 4 in his CV is not going to look better than the Europa. So
it's guaranteed Champions League as well.
Exactly.
Anyway, regardless
and it's all about timings. Like, who would have said 5 weeks ago that Liverpool at home to Watford was a bit of a banana skin? 5 weeks ago, that was like, I'll tick that off.
Gimme, yeah.
But I know they did give it. There was a give me in the end, but the build-up it wasn't. So it's all about timing. It's like Liverpool. If Everton would have got beat by Cardiff, you know, that game give them all the confidence in the world because they won that game 3-0, and then you go on the pitch and we've won a game. So it's timings. It's timings.
You mentioned earlier on about Virgil van Dijk, and you called him the best defender in the world.
Oh yeah, by distance.
Jamie Carragher, after the game at the weekend, suggested that he should get Player of the Season or Player of the Year. Do you agree with that, or is anyone that could challenge? Who would come close?
I picked out 2 players. My 2 players for Player of the Season was Van Dijk, and my other one was Fernandinho. And I had Fernandinho because the 2 games he missed, they lost. And for all the stars, he's the one they do miss. But no, for me, Van Dijk, because I think Liverpool where they are because of him. I just think even the other day, he got that fear factor. You know, I even see Theo Walcott get the ball on the right and he squares up and it's Van Dijk and he just crosses the ball. Yeah. You know, anybody else he'd have gone, you know what, I'm going to have a go here. And the shot, for me, I think he's the best in the world. I think he's a phenomenal player. I couldn't talk highly enough of him. I think he's that good.
Do you disagree?
Definitely not. He's the best. I think we've all heard the Troy Deeney comments about him. You know, he's quicker than you, he's stronger than you, he's bigger than you, he smells nice, as he said. So we all know how good he is and what he's brought to that Liverpool team. Obviously, I know they've addressed the keeper situation as well. But on the pitch, he just looks so comfortable. I think Jamie Carragher said it, he looks almost unchallenged at times. And this is a guy that's playing in the Premier League every week. So when you're able to do that in the Premier League and then you step into the Champions League, you're doing the same. Step into international football, you're doing the same. And people can't cause you problems. You've got to be spoken about as the best in the world.
I think he's doing at the back what Thierry Henry used to do up front. He's playing like he's a 20-year-old playing in an under-14s league sometimes.
Playing his own game.
I really do. I think he's that head and shoulders above everybody, like Thierry Henry made people look like he was playing in the wrong age group. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Cologne aside, I'm going to ask you both just to pick who you think will win the Premier League. Tricky, isn't it?
On this show, I've said Liverpool before because they had their wobble at that time, and I thought that it was just in the stars for them. So I can't really move away from that, even though Manchester City have gone in front, because I'm going to stick with it based on.
You don't have to. If you
no,
really
I don't have to, but I'm going to stick by my morals because I think with Man City having got the League Cup in the bag, now gone ahead in the Premier League, Champions League, they look like they're going to qualify to the next round. And as Merson said, there's going to be potential more games. There's another two-legger to get to a final. And then there are games in the FA Cup. If they get replays in the FA Cup, they could potentially play 10 more games for an end season. And I know their squad is very vast and they've got lots of good players that can come off the bench.
Good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't look bad. The stand looks good for them. But obviously, when you're talking about the level of playing, with all due respect, be it a lower Premier League team and then playing a Champions League game and then going to a mid-Premier League team to go into big Champions League game, big FA Cup game, big league game, week in, week out. It's a totally different level of how you want to rotate your squad.
So Curtis thinks Liverpool. Who do you think, Paul?
I'm going for the history. I'm going to go for Liverpool. You know, I think you look back in come what may and go Everton away and Man United away were two massive draws, two big results. Points. You know, I was lucky enough to win the league twice. I was lucky enough. We had a melt. We had a proper melt against Liverpool. They caught us and we ended up winning it. But you learn as you go on. When you don't play well, make sure you don't lose, and then points mount up, and it mounts up, and it mounts up, and then them 2 points means they're a point behind. Otherwise, they're 3 points behind, and it's good night if they'd have lost both of them. And then, for me, I'm going to go Liverpool still. I think they'll find that form. And as we said, Curtis was saying, Man City got so many big games, and I think at the end of the day, you know, if they get to the semi-final of the Champions League, I think Champions League will be their priority, in my opinion. But